All right, let's talk about how to stop procrastinating. It's something we all struggle with, but it's not about being lazy. Not at all. It's actually a lot deeper and, honestly, more interesting than that. So, let's get into it.
I mean, think about it. You've got that huge deadline looming, or you promised yourself you'd go to the gym. The time is there, but somehow you find yourself scrolling on your phone, telling yourself just 5 more minutes, which, always turns into an hour. Or maybe you sit down at your desk ready to work, and suddenly you have this overwhelming urge to organize your entire bookshelf. Why do we do this? Let's figure that out.
Okay, first things first. Let's get one thing straight. Procrastination is not a character flaw. It's not you being lazy. It's actually a problem with managing your emotions. It's a defense mechanism, really. Your brain is just trying to avoid feelings like boredom, or anxiety, or even that little voice of self-doubt that pops up when you're about to do something hard. You're not incapable. You're just hardwired to avoid feeling uncomfortable.
So to really solve this thing, we first have to understand what we're actually up against. And you're about to see it has very little to do with the clock, and everything to do with what's going on inside our own heads. This is not a new problem. This isn't some 21st century issue. The ancient Greek philosophers actually had a word for it, akrasia. It literally means to act against your better judgment. It's that feeling of doing one thing, even when you know, deep down, you should be doing something else. It's a human thing, and it's been around forever.
And modern psychologists have pretty much nailed why we do it. When we're faced with a task that makes us feel bad in some way, bored, stressed, whatever, we procrastinate to get a quick hit of relief. It's all about short-term mood repair. The only problem, that good feeling is super temporary, and it almost always makes us feel way worse in the long run.
This right here, this is the internal tug of war perfectly laid out. Some psychologists call it time inconsistency. Basically, your present self is all about instant gratification. It wants to feel good right now, so it puts off the hard stuff. But your poor future self, that's the one who gets stuck with the stress and the consequences later on.
So if you take one thing away from this section, let it be this. If you really want to stop procrastinating, you have to stop trying to manage your time and start learning how to manage your emotions. That is the fundamental shift. That changes the entire game. Okay, so if we know the problem isn't finishing the task, but just starting it, how on earth do we make starting easier? Well, the answer comes from a kind of surprising place: chemistry. So in chemistry, there's this concept called activation energy. It's the minimum amount of energy you need to get a chemical reaction going. Like striking a match, you need that initial friction to create the flame. Well, it turns out our habits work the exact same way. A task like write a 20-page research paper feels like a giant mountain, right? It has a super high activation energy, which means it takes a ton of willpower just to get started. But a task like open a new document, well, that has an incredibly low activation energy. It's easy. And that is the secret. We need to stop waiting around for some magical bolt of motivation to strike us. It's not coming. Instead, we're going to strategically make our tasks so ridiculously easy to start that motivation just doesn't matter anymore.
Okay, let's get practical. Let's look at the very first tool for putting this all into practice. It is so simple, but trust me, it is ridiculously powerful. It's called the 5-minute rule. And all it asks from you is just 5 minutes. The process could not be simpler. You pick that thing you've been dreading. You set a timer for 5 minutes. And this is the magic part. You give yourself full total permission to stop when that timer goes off. No pressure to finish it, no expectations. Just start. So why does this little trick work so unbelievably well? Well, it taps into something in our brains called the Zeigarnik effect. When you start something, you create this open loop, this mental tension in your mind. And your brain hates open loops. It wants to close them. That desire to close the loop is what makes it so much easier to keep going.
Now, the 5-minute rule is great, but we can lower that activation energy even more. There are 2 other really powerful ways to do it: by changing the task itself and by changing the space where you do the task. Let's be honest, huge, vague tasks are paralyzing. Write project reports is basically an invitation for your brain to procrastinate. So you break it down into the smallest, most concrete steps you can imagine. The first step isn't write, it's just open the document. Each tiny little step has almost zero activation energy, so the resistance just melts away.
Your environment is like
a catalyst. It's either making it easier for you to work or it's making it harder. If you want to lower the activation energy for focusing, you have to design an environment with fewer distractions. Make focus the path of least resistance. Seriously, put your phone in another room. Discipline gets a whole lot easier when the temptations aren't right in front of you.
And speaking of tools, another great one that uses a timer is the Pomodoro technique. You just work in these intense 25-minute sprints, and then you take a little break. It makes starting feel way less scary because you're not committing to hours of work. Just one short, totally manageable burst.
Now, this is really important. All these tools and tricks, they're not just about checking more things off your to-do list. When you use them over and over, you're doing something much bigger. You're fundamentally changing who you are.
You see, most of us get stuck focusing on outcomes, like, I want to finish this project. But real, lasting change happens at the deepest level, identity. The goal isn't just to write a book, it's to become a writer. It's not just to run a marathon, it's to become a runner.
And every single time you use the 5-minute rule, every time you break a task down, you're doing more than just work. You are casting a vote for the type of person you want to be. You're proving to yourself with hard evidence that you're not a procrastinator, you are an action taker.
So really, that's what this all comes down to. You don't need more time. You don't need some flash of inspiration. You just need to make it easier to start. Stop waiting until you feel like it. That feeling you're looking for, motivation, it comes after you start, not before.
When you really think about it, procrastination is just the gap between what you intend to do and what you actually do. By learning to handle that little bit of discomfort right at the beginning, you're not just getting stuff done. You are actively, brick by brick, building the person you want to become. One small, 5-minute action at a time.